Hi guys, it's Crespo and I'm back with another video. So, a new Disney movie has come out and people have already lost their damn minds. Disney's Encanto is an animated movie that came out last year in December, that follows the Madrigal family, who all possess powers except for Mirabel, the protagonist of the film. The plot revolves around Mirabel trying to find her place in the family while saving the magic that their family possesses. It's a great movie and one I really enjoyed. I think it's even one of the best animated movies of last year. It had great characters that were all quirky and fun, it addressed generational trauma in a way that is understandable yet complex, and it had a great list of songs. I literally couldn't stop singing "We Don't Talk About Bruno." It was also great for Latin representation, as it highlighted Colombian culture and consists of a diverse cast of characters. All in all, it was a great movie, but that's the problem. With any great piece of work, it is bound to attract people, lots of people, and sometimes the unsavory kind. Encanto gained a cult following and it didn't take long for the fandom to lose their marbles. The Encanto fandom is insane, from shipping family members to whitewashing, and the weirdest headcanons. I'm not even surprised, when the internet gets something new they don't know how to act. I also find it funny that Lin-Manuel Miranda is also part of this phenomenon, like none of this actually revolves around him, but don't you think it's funny he helped cultivate two pieces of works that spurred two shitty fandoms? It's almost like a curse. Wherever Lin-Manuel Miranda goes, trouble follows. Anyways, today's video will be going over all the drama that has gone down in the Encanto fandom. And boy is it a lot.
Oh my god, bro.
Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck, man? Get your ass on.
Whitewashing is something I'm not even surprised is here. It's a problem all across the board of any fandoms, and I'm also not surprised it managed to slip its way into the Encanto fandom. There have been multiple cases of whitewashing in the Encanto fandom as well as removing ethnic features, but the one case that caused the most problem is a TikTok video by artist Sparks Arts, who did a redraw of Isabella in their art style. The video was received negatively because the artist was accused of whitewashing and erasing many ethnical features of Isabella's. Some people agreed, some people didn't, but it did cause a lot of argument. The second problem in the fandom is the most heinous one, and that is the shipping. The shipping in Encanto is nothing far from what the fuck. As I said before, the movie is about a family and there are only a few characters in the film that are not a part of this family. So that shouldn't leave room for any ships, right? Right? Well, you'd be wrong. The Encanto fandom decided to pull a Sweet Home Alabama and completely disregard the fact that some of the characters are family members. Yes, you heard that right, some people began to ship members of the Madrigal family. The most popular family ship is Bruno and Camilo. Did people forget that Bruno is 50 and Camilo is 15? FBI, open up! Pedophilia and incest are just other things the Encanto fandom just seemingly lets slide. The other popular ship is Mirabel and Bruno because I guess people thought they had chemistry and because Mirabel was the only person who cared about Bruno. But I just saw it as family love. Actually, correction, everybody should have just seen as family love. There is nothing romantic about Bruno and Mirabel. Nobody should be shipping these characters. I don't think I have to point out why it's bad to ship family members. I think we all know why it's morally fucked up. Despite the lack of ship material, there are some ships that are not all bad. There are Encanto ships that are creative that don't involve incest or pedophilia.
Never say they want to. Girls can't never say how. Girls can't never say they need it. Girls can't never say now. Girls can't never say they want to.
So short answer, it's completely fine to have headcanons. In fact, headcanons make it a lot more engaging, relatable to the movie. There's no real harm in headcanons alone. But let's get into the long answer. Let's get into Encanto, because with Encanto you see that it's mainly people of color that are upset about the headcanons and white people aren't. Of course there's a few, overlap and whatever, but there's a very real reason for this. When a white person makes a headcanon about an Encanto character, it is, based on their own experiences, because that's all the experience they have. But by doing that, they erase a lot of the, cultural significance that is happening and actually explaining their actions and why they might come to that headcanon. Instead, what ends up happening is that anyone with like an ethnic background is seeing, you know, a situation they relate to, and then online it being completely erased and being made into something that it wasn't meant to communicate. But that type of headcanon is more specific to, you know, assumptions that Isabella is a lesbian and that Bruno's gay, you know? When you start getting into the like gendered headcanons, when it comes from a white person, a lot of the time they might ignore or completely forget, you know, the masculinization of, you know, POC women. So that's where it begins to get, again, a little bit more messy. So long answer simplified, it's because it erases a lot of the cultural things when you are only pushing these headcanons. Headcanons, maybe just keep them to yourself for this movie. If you want to like explain a character more in depth as to why you think it is that they might be that headcanon, sure. But making these videos where you just are like, I think they're this, and giving it for every single character, it erases so much more.
Wow, that was a really good movie. Yeah, I thought so too. I mean, to see a Disney movie handle a topic as profound as, you know, pressuring children in labeling them as gifted or not gifted. I mean, that's something that I struggled with for like a lot of my life. So to see it play out in film was like really, really inspiring. And I loved how they pointed out that being labeled as gifted or not gifted is going to in turn serve as a detriment to all children. And it's going to follow you into adulthood, where if you underperform, you feel like you're cheating yourself somehow, you're cheating your family, you're cheating your friends that all think that, oh, you have the potential to do so much greater. I thought that was a really good film. Yeah, Isabella's definitely a lesbian. What? Yeah, and Camilo is gender fluid. I'm sorry, from that whole viewing experience, that's what you gleaned from that?
Headcanons are not the biggest problem, but they are what has caused the most discourse. For those unfamiliar with what a headcanon is a made-up piece of fandom that a person creates or that they think is real personally. Headcanons aren't inherently bad, and it's just a fun way for people to express themselves. However, the problem with headcanons arises when people begin to disagree with each other's headcanons, and it can cause infighting in fandoms. And that's exactly what happened with the Encanto fandom. There were a lot, but I'd just like to pick at the ones that caused the most problems. One headcanon was the making of Encanto characters queer and LGBTQ. This opened up the discourse that headcanoning these characters as queer took away from the original message of the film. Some Latin and other people of color and non-POC had a problem, namely with white queers headcanoning Encanto characters, because they believed it was taking away from the messaging of the movie that explores Latin family structures and generational trauma. This is important for Latin people because they finally got a good movie with proper representation that tells their story. They felt like they couldn't have something for themselves. On the other hand, some Latin and white people believed that LGBTQI canoning didn't take away from the movie's overall message and was just a way for people to relate to characters. Whilst also on the topic of the LGBTQI, those who were also against the headcanoning felt as if the queer headcanons were stereotypical and harmful. Examples I'd like to show are the headcanons that Luisa was a trans woman, that Isabella was lesbian, and there was also the disapproval of one headcanon that stated that Mirabel and Bruno might have had Tourette syndrome because of their movements and behaviors.
As far as specific characters go, we're gonna talk about Luisa first, because the Luisa fans so far have been the most problematic, except for the Bruno and Camilo simps. They scare me. But the main two headcanons that I've seen for Luisa is that she's a lesbian and that she's trans male to female. Let's just start with the lesbian part. The only acceptable reason that you have so far to headcanon Luisa as a lesbian is if you personally are a lesbian and you find comfort in that, or if you have that headcanon because you know that the voice actress of Luisa is LGBTQ+. If it is for neither of those reasons, you are homophobic. That's all I'm gonna... You're homophobic. You are stereotyping in one of the worst ways, and stop it. It's not even that I don't think that Luisa's a lesbian. It's not that I don't think she's not straight. But the fact that most of y'all literally only say that because she doesn't look super traditionally feminine, that's problematic. And building off of that, male to female Louisa is just a big no. You're being racist and you're being transphobic. I know, I've seen so many Latina women that look just like her. So what are you saying then? That all Latina women look like men? That, like, what point are you trying to get at here? That only trans women can be big and strong? Like, what are you saying by saying that? It also comes from a place of, you have no evidence. You have nothing to build off of. So why are you saying this? Like the people that will say like, oh, Bruno has OCD. Like, I just made a video about this. There's reasons to think that. What's your reason for thinking that Luisa's a lesbian or trans? They never hint at that. There's nothing that tells you either of those things. So what are you going on about? Stereotypes? Knock it off. Seriously. This is coming from a trans, like, gender fluid, panromantic, asexual person. I know where you're coming from, but, like, dude, stop it.
The whole Louisa being trans thing being problematic was mostly due to the idea that claiming a buff woman is trans perpetuates the harmful stereotype that trans women look a certain way and are masculine. The Isabella discourse started because people were pointing out that just because she didn't marry Mariano didn't mean she wasn't straight, and it's problematic to assume that women can only turn down men if they are lesbian. And the last one I mentioned about Mirabel and Bruno was disliked because Latin people pointed out that the mannerism and superstitions of their culture should not be chalked up to as tics or being neurodivergent. Okay, so now that you have some idea of what's going on, I'll be giving you my thoughts on these issues. I'll start with the whitewashing. Do I think the TikTok artist whitewashed Isabella? Yes. I do think they look lighter than they should. Do I think it was malicious? No. But take what I say with a grain of salt. I'm no artist nor do I draw, I have no background in art, but I still think there was a lot of erasure done to Isabella's character. On the basis of whitewashing, I personally think that you should never alter a character's features or skin tone, and if you are to do it, don't post it on the internet because it will not end well for you. Now here are my thoughts on the queer headcanons. I can see both sides. I can understand why Latin people are upset. Because if all you took away from this movie is that Isabella would be a cool lesbian, then there is a problem. However, I can also understand the headcanons because most of them are harmless fun. In terms of the headcanons taking away from the movie, I don't think they do, because they aren't what's being pushed to the forefront when people talk about this movie. Though I have seen some people try to rewrite it in a way where the characters' struggle is due to their queerness rather than the original conflict of the movie. The other issue on the topic of queer headcanons is making Louisa trans, which is quite interesting. To recap, the problem was headcanoning Louisa as trans is transphobic because it fits into the stereotype that trans women are masculine, which is a valid criticism. There are many people in Encanto who could have chosen to be trans, but they decided to pick a woman who is buff, but on the other hand, there are trans women in the world who are buff and look like Louisa. For example, trans woman Janae Marie Kroc, who is not only a woman but a kick-ass weightlifter, and her being buff doesn't take away from her womanhood. But there also comes into play the history of POC women being masculinized and having their femininity stripped away from them. So there's that. There are so many things that can be factored into this discussion. Honestly, looking at all this discourse has made my brain hurt. It's amazing that a movie that is bright and bubbly can have such vapid and crazy fans, but this goes for all fandoms. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please hit the like button if you did. Please subscribe. I am trying to hit 100 subs by the end of the month and it would really help.